In today's video, I have all of these squares of scraps. So stick with me. I'm going to show you how to make a potato chip quilt as you go. Well, a mini one. And there'll be a pattern in the description box down below if you'd like to try and make it. It's going to be a quick one. At least I think so. It's going to be a potato chip made in my way. Let me know if you think that you can make this one and if you like the pattern or not. Let's get started. Get all of your scraps beautifully cut, neat and tidy, stack them, and we're going to lay them out randomly. All the blocks have now been sewn together. So my next thing that I need to do is to sew this into rows, and then I'll show you how creative this is going to be. Next stage is I have sewn everything together in the rows, and I'm going to make some further subcuts. All right, so I have my next row ready here, and I'm going to cut on both ends, and then I'm going to stitch it back on together. So once I've done that, it's going to look like this one here. So as you can see, it has changed. Hopefully you can pick it up on camera. All right, it has changed on the end. What I have done to make sure that is with some of the blocks, the darker fabrics, which I have intentionally lay out this way instead of, so I have dark here, dark here, dark here, dark here. Once you've made your cuts, you need to flip the strips. All right, what I mean by that, turn them, if this is the bottom, the top cut, you put it on the other side, okay, and vice versa. You just switch them around, all right, so that you get a different variation of the colors for each of the rows. That's the objective. And then obviously you will then stitch it all together. All right, so I have 2 rows here. I'm going to show you now how to do the quilt as you go. So my rows are completed. So I'm going to sew these together to make them one row. So I'm going to compile this quilt as you go in 2 sets of rows, even though the quilt itself has 5 individual rows. Okay, so I'm going to sew them front sides together, and I'm going to just line up. But I'm going to sew it together, and then I'm going to come back and show you the steps you need to take for the quilt as you go. Alright, so the next stage is I've already stitched both together here. So these are my 2 rows that I showed you earlier that I was going to stitch together. I went ahead and added the borders. Now, you're going to add the borders in a normal way that you would add borders on. The only difference is we have not sewn the whole quilt top together. As I stated earlier, my quilt top here is in 5 rows. I've sewn 2 and I've sewn the other 3 together. So what I have done is add my first side border here. So I added my border to the side, okay, both sides, and then I added the top. Just as you would normally, nothing changes. Okay, and then I've put it on the batting. Now I have 80% and 80% cotton, 20% polyester batting here. Now I did not iron my quilt top. I just stitched it together with the borders, etc., and I added it to the batting here. And I'm just going to take a warm iron and press it all together. The reason I'm doing this is just so that this particular batting, it adheres to the fabric quite easily. Okay, I haven't got any basting spray. For some reason I can't seem to find any. It seems to be out of stock quite a lot. Usually I pick up like 2 or 3 tins to last me a while, but every time I've been, there isn't any in stock at all in my local quilting store. Nevertheless, I've used some straight pins on here. As you can see, I have my little pin machine here, and all I'm doing basically is adhering the batting to the half piece quilt top here, which works really nicely. It's one of the things I do quite a lot. All right, so if you're using just polyester batting, you cannot do this, all right? Because I have cotton batting here, you can get away with it. It really does adhere to it really nicely. I don't usually steam it, to be honest, but the steamer is on, but it's no big deal. I usually just do a nice warm iron and it sticks to it. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, the battings here and the fabric. I am going to get and put the other side on, so the backing fabric is going to go on, and I'm going to baste it. The pins are already on the top, so I'm going to use the same pins and put all 3 together. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and I'm going to trim off this extra here. Once that's done, then I'm going to start quilting. Now, before you start quilting, just make sure it's lovely and smooth and you're happy with the position on the batting. The reason why I say that is because once you start quilting, you can't shift, you can't move anything. I'm not going to trim anything off at the moment. The batting is slightly bigger than the quilt top, which is fine, as we should. Again, nothing changes, it's the same. However, I haven't really added an extensive amount of batting left over. This is a quilt as you go, so you can manage it quite easily underneath your sewing machine. All right, and to me it gets the job done a lot more quickly. The most important thing is that you make sure you have extra so that you can trim. Don't do it exact, and I would say when you are quilting, don't quilt it too densely, otherwise it does shrink up quite a lot. But if you use a meandering nice stitch or even straight line stitching, it does adhere it together quite easily. Now you have 2 options, and I'll link some of my videos where I have did the 2 versions of the quilt as you go, but for this one I am going to add the backing on, and for other videos I have done where I have only quilted at this stage and then add the backing. But for this video I am going to add the backing on and quilt the whole thing together. Then I will show you how to join them. Okay, so whatever I've done for this side I will do for the other half. So the other half will have the 2 at the end as normal, the 2 borders at the end, and the borders at this stage will be at the bottom. I'm working with the top piece here. All right, let me continue. Alright, so let's talk about the amount of fabric I give as a leeway. So if you're looking here at the top, this is the top of the quilt. You can see the border. So I've given myself just a little bit extra, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. I've done that also on the side. So as you can see here, alright, same, it's about 1.5 inches away from the edge of the actual quilt top. On the area where it's supposed to be joined, again, remember this is just 2 rows together. So the area where I have left it to be joined, this is very important. Okay, what's going to happen once I quilt this, I am going to trim away the batting to the edge of the quilt top. However, I'm going to be using the scissors, and you will not trim away the backing fabric. You're just trimming away the batting. Very, very important. The reason being is because we want this extra hair to be able to join onto the other one to hide the seam whereby we join the quilt top. I will show you this in detail, but this is important. You can do this on either this one or the other half. You can leave the extra on this, the first one, or the other half. Is entirely down to you. I always tend to use it on the first because then I will have remembered to have done it. All right, let's move on to the quilting now. So as you can see, the batting is on, it's quilt, the backing is on, and I'm going to quilt it as normal. It should get done very quickly because I haven't got a huge lot to go through my sewing machine. All right, let's continue. Okay, so you're looking at the larger piece now. And just to prove to you, I've done the same thing. So this is the 3 rows. Remember, the first one I showed you had 2 rows. So you can see the border here on the side, and the border at the top and at the other side as well, which is right here. All right. So it's not basted. Remember, I said I haven't got any basting spray, so I'm just pinning at the moment. I haven't put the backing on as yet. At present, I'm just removing any spare threads that's just sticking out. You know, when the machine cuts the thread, it just leaves a little bit of a hangover sometimes. So I'm just removing those because I don't like those on the quilt when I'm quilting. It just feels like another task to stop and remove. So I'm just getting rid of those. And I'll do the same process. So I'll pin it into position first, and then I would add the backing onto it. Once the backing is added, then I would do the same process of adding a little bit of a heat so it adheres to it as well. It's one of my tricks I do when I don't have any basting spray. I had to take a break from quilting. My shoulders are aching me. This is a shoulder massager, and so it really gets the job done. Oh my God, it's aching me so much. It's right there. Can you see it working? So what you do is you put it in. Ah, ow. Yeah, that hurt. When you put it in your arms, and you just kind of pull it down. Oh, and it really hits the spot. So yeah, my shoulder's a bit sore from making that quilt. Yeah, it's a quilting because I was sitting down and quilting to the machine there. So, but I reckon after half an hour of this massage, it will work. My husband works for a massage company, so hence the reason why we have all these massaging chairs and massaging equipment in the house. But it does work really, really well. So anyway, once I'm back, once I feel well again, I will go back and finish the quilt. Had to take a short break. Finish quilting. Next steps now is to trim off all the extra batting and backing fabric. All right, so line up your ruler on your mat. What I usually do is use my ruler itself rather than use the mat for measurements. So for example, like say I have my line at the bottom there, I would line up that on the edge of the quilt top just to make sure I get a straight line. Right, so here's my smaller piece. I have trimmed all the sides. Again, sides where the borders are. This is the side where we're going to be joined. So you can see here the batting is here. What I am going to do is to remove the batting. I would not advise you to use your rotary cutter, otherwise you will trim this off, okay, and then you're stuck. Well, you're not stuck. You'll have to make like a binding and then put it flat to join it. So once you put these two together, you'll have to do like a strip, hide the raw edges of the strip, i.e. so fold the edges in. So let me give you an example, all right? I had some fabric here. So let's say, for example, you accidentally cut off the area where you're going to join. So you were, busy doing something else. Your mind is not where it is, and you've trimmed off all the layers here, i.e. the batting as well as the backing fabric. So your area looks like this. Okay. So if I was you, what I would do is take a strip of the same fabric. So you're going to take a strip of the same backing fabric, and you can make like a binding with it, or you just fold in the raw edges together like so. Okay, and then what you would do is put it on top. Obviously this is behind, okay, it's the back of the quilt, and then stitch it down. So then that way it looks seamless, but you will most likely see this. Okay, I like to use a very floral for the back whenever I am doing a quilt as you go, because you don't see the join, because it looks seamless then. All right, so back to this particular method now. So I'm going to use my very sharp scissors here and take my time and literally cut it away, the batting. That's all you're doing right now. So this is the only sort of careful moment, and I am literally holding it so that I can see that it's separated from here, okay? All right, so all the batting has been removed now. You can clearly see that. So next step is to consider, and this is an independent decision, consider how wide you want this. Ideally, what I do is trim it to 1 inch. So whatever is left, I would trim away so that I measure from the edge of the quilt onto the fabric. I'm just measuring 1 inch so that I can fold. You don't need it to be too bulky. So 1 inch is just perfect. It comes into a nice small seam and you can't see it literally. If you feel more confident making the fold wider, so for example, this is about 2 inches here. So then I would fold once to the edge of the fabric and then fold over again. So you see, it gives you a wide joining. I don't particularly like that. I like it a little bit more small. So let's say if I fold this in, I'm going to imagine this is my 1 inch cut. So when I fold like that to the edge of the fabric and fold over, it's a lot more smaller and seamless. But I'm going to demonstrate that now. All right, so put them opposite each other, making sure they line up, okay? So just to prove to you how mine's line up nicely, I can see my borders here. If I put my borders together, I can see everything comes together really nicely. All the joints meet correctly all the way through, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is to just simply flip it front sides together. And all I'm going to do is to pin. So measure, make sure your seams match, just like anything else that you would. And then you pin them, and I will show you how to stitch this together. Okay, so I'm going to sew it together now. 2 important things. 1, make sure that the leftover backing fabric is looking at you, so it's not facing down, so you can see the wrong side. As you see, I have the position here. Very important. If you put it the other way around, it's very likely you're going to stitch it and you're going to have to unpick. So make sure that you can see it laid out nice and clear and flat on your machine. The second most important thing, you need to change your stitch length. If you are using a short stitch length, it's going to be very tough and tight and slow moving through here because there's got a couple of layers, right? So what I have done is my stitch width is 3.5, my stitch length is 3.5, and that way it will sew it together nice and easy without any stress. And I am using a 1/4 inch. So I'll give you an example. See how easy it moves? You just take your time and go with it as normal. All right, so let me show you how to do this now. So what I have done is just taken my iron, and it's on yellow, indicating that it's just warm, all right? And all I've done is just press it forward, just a little bit of heat, just to relax the fabric, okay? And once you've done that, I did it all the way down. I'm just doing it again to demonstrate to you. Once you've done that, you're going to need your pins, and you're going to literally, and you can't even see it right now because at the end of the day, let me zoom out a little bit. That's better. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just tuck it under as my first fold and fold it over like so. Take a pin and literally, oh, I'm sticking into my mat, and pin it. That's all you need to do basically. Once you've done that, and because you've cut it at 1 inch, the fold should be nice and even. So you shouldn't have wider folds and bigger folds and smaller folds. It should be nice and even. All right, I got my mat on here because obviously I was pressing, and I don't like to do it on the table because it makes the table sweat for some reason. It just gives out loads of heat on the wood. So again, just take your pin and just pin it in place so that once you go on the machine, it's already done. The folding is already done. I didn't add any heat. As I said, it was just a warm iron. It just relaxes the bulky seam there. Okay, and that's it basically, guys. So just go all the way down, pinning as you go. Just tuck under like so, bend and fold it over. Quite easy and not stressful. I started this quilt yesterday around 10 o'clock. What time is it now? And I stopped with it yesterday at quarter to 5, because I always go in, start like getting dinner ready at 5 o'clock. So I always judge my day to end at 5 o'clock. So, but I stopped a little bit earlier yesterday because I was a bit hungry. And yeah, so, and then now look at it, it's almost done. Okay, so it's a very quick method, really, it really is, and it really reduces the stress of having to quilt your quilt under your throat space, especially if you've got a smaller machine. All right, so let me just add a little bit of iron here because I can definitely feel the difference. So again, just a warm iron to relax that bulk there, so that when you fold it over, it goes over nice and smoothly. So I'm going to go ahead with this, and then once I'm done, the next objective really is to just add the binding, and you're done. And I will show you what it looks like. This turned out really beautiful. I love it. Looks awesome, doesn't it? You would not think that this is a quilt as you go. And yes, it's my version of a quilt as you go. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I came up with this idea because at the time when I was traveling around Australia, I had a very small sewing machine. And so I decided, what can I do to make life easier for me? And I thought of sewing it in rows. As I said before, I'll link the videos. But this is my scrappy quilt as you go potato chip quilt. I love it. It looks really awesome. It looks really, really awesome. What is really coming out to me though is the darks, as well as that bright yellow. It really stands out beautifully. And I'll tell you this as well. What I find really interesting is the border. The border just falls into, or I should say the borders, falls into the sort of natural organics layout of the quilt, because it kind of makes you think that, the border is also part of the scrappy. I mean, the border is leftover fabric, to be honest. That's all that's left, and I managed to squeeze it to get it. But it looks like there is no border, and the scrappiness just transitions right to the end. I like the fact that I used a coral color for the binding. It really frames it up. Let me step back a little bit so you can see it. Love it. Looks really good. Really, really good. Yeah. For the layout, I don't know. I was trying to go in with a dotted around blacks, which I think I have achieved, because I did use a lot of dark. So you can see where I did the further subcut, you can see the two fabrics here come together. Sometimes they came together to make one dark or the one green there, and sometimes I got it split. But overall, it looks really good. And this is a scrappy quilt. I'm telling you now, it's a scrappy quilt. Okay, it looks really awesome. Loving, loving, loving. The size is 53 by 59. So almost 60 squared. But you can go bigger if you want. Again, this is a 5-row, but it looks awesome. Loving it. The scraps played out really nicely. The colors work together really beautifully. So I am calling this a mini potato chip because obviously I cut the squares, the sizes down to make that small fabric in the middle there. And I went around it with the original squares. So let me show you the actual block. This is the block here. That's the block there. So I put a potato chip at the top and at the bottom and left the middle like so. But the way I did it, I did not piece it individually. So I did not piece these blocks here individually. The way how I did it, I did a subcut so that it came out really quickly. Yeah, so, it reduced the cutting. but it looks really well. If you heard little footsteps, that was this man here. He just walked in. I don't know why. And he's huffing and puffing at me. But looks awesome. Let me show you the back. Oh, before I do that, let me, can you spot where it's actually joined at the front? Can you see it? If you can, let me know. But because it's such a, you know, colorful layout, can't really tell. There it is. Can you see it there? You can see that seam line, but again, if I didn't show you that, you would not have noticed it. And let me show you the back. The back fabric is really lovely. You've seen it already, but let's look at it again. Really beautiful floral, and you can see where the fold over is. But again, as I said, designed this way so that you could use this underneath your sewing machine, your throat space. You know, not everybody has a large quilting sewing machine, but if you don't, you can use my technique. It's quilt as you go in this rows to create your quilt. And you will be happy and save yourself money. And that way you don't have to go to a long arm. And you can practice your quilting row by row, which makes it so much easier. So listen, if you enjoyed this video, all right, so if you're watching my videos and you're not subscribing, please subscribe, okay? It takes a lot of effort and time, energy, and love to make the videos. But if you appreciate it, show some love by simply just subscribing and leaving a comment. You know, it doesn't take much for me to do that. And watch the video till the end. Don't watch the important parts that you want only. You know, watch the whole process. And that way you understand the process a lot more clearly rather than sending me a message, you know? Not that you actually sound like that, I don't know. But definitely like, subscribe, and share the video out. Leave a comment. I really look forward to hearing from you. Let's go back to the quilt. But hey, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. Let me know if you're going to make one. The pattern, of course, is in the description box down below. And I'm loving it. It's a beautiful size, nice size for sitting down watching the telly with. So colorful, great for using up small pieces of scraps. And yeah, you're done. But yeah, you can, and the thing is, you can go as big as you want with this. You can keep going. You can keep going and make a beautiful large bed quilt. You can take a whole year and get it done, because all you do is just keep cutting up your squares until you actually need to use them. Just set them aside and make the rows set aside. But beautiful, beautiful way to use up some scraps. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Happy quilting, everybody.